so close. Not really. But, I mean, Nevada takes parlays on the game, but not as many parlays and not the extent in terms of how big these parlays are across the country. So I didn't see – look, we're going to get all these numbers over the next week or so. It's hard for me. I'm sitting in my car right now outside the restaurant. I don't have all my data in front of me. I don't know how much they took in, these bigger states. But I do know that generally speaking on these big events, Nevada takes a huge handle because a lot of foot traffic comes into town. But there are many more parlays at these rec books across the country. So it's a good question. It's a fair one as well. I just don't have the answer to that.
Sammy P, let's talk props. The very first one that I bet hit, which was over 1.5 interceptions. I had a handful of others. There was one that I bet every year that I completely forgot about and did not make. How did the props turn out for you?
For me, they were good. The only one that was a big loser was the punts under. I went under 6.5, and that was, you knew that was dead like the first quarter because it was punt. And eventually it only landed 8, but it doesn't matter. Some people would say they only lost by a hook or, 1.5, and it's like, okay, well, you lost. That was not good for me, but all the other stuff was very solid. Noah Gray, under on catches, under on yardage. The Saquon Barkley longest rush under, which Crack talked about on our show last week at like 24.5. He did not have any of those huge runs. One of my favorite props, which I do most years, not every year, but first quarter under 9.5. That was great for me. And my favorite prop every year, the anthem. We had the anthem under. What do we have, Steve? Under 2 minutes and 5 seconds on the anthem?
Well, it got down to 2 minutes and a half second. And depending on how it was graded, it got kind of controversial, right?
It did, but this is also something that we made sure to address.
Yep.
If you bet this, you're not betting it at the Westgate Circus South Point Golden Nugget stations. You're betting this with a local bookie or you're betting it offshore, and you have to check the language of the prop. And the one that we talked about on your show was word to word, words only, not the beginning of the song to the end of the song, the word to the word, the beginning of the song until the end. And apparently, he finished at like 2 minutes flat, give or take, but then he did that little sexy piano at the end.
Yeah, doesn't count.
So if it's word to word, no, it doesn't count.
But some folks count it.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets shady because, hey, if they need that over, they can take advantage of it. We got to have the rules, and that's why it's serious. Was there a halftime bet out there that actually got halftime? Was it halftime show? Halftime show bet that got graded incorrectly?
Yeah, well, there was a lot of shady stuff. And again, when it's not regulated and legalized like it is in Nevada, this is what you run into. So there were some bookies that I know that had bosses that said, hey, we're not going to grade any of the halftime stuff as a winner because people had inside information. And I go, oh man, then don't take it to begin with because it always comes out. The time on the anthem, the rehearsal time always comes out on Friday, and then the set list for the halftime show comes out Friday, Saturday. So if you're going to play that game, you can't do that. Now, DraftKings in Canada paid out the first song properly. GNX was the first song that Kendrick Lamar played. But there were some offshore spots and some bookies that decided to not only void the bets, but grade them as losers. And that's a 5-1 bet, dude. 5-1. Yeah. So, I had some people reach out to me that listen to our show and shows I do throughout the week and all that. And if you bet $100, that's $500. You bet $200, that's a dime. And not only are you not getting the money you deserve because you made the right bet, people are now telling you that you lost the bet. And it's just, but again, at the end of the day, this is why you bet in Nevada. You bet legally. You get the tickets. You know the house rules. We know the bookmakers. This is what happens when you mingle in the weeds.
Sam Panayotovich is up with Cofield and Willie, Cofield and Company. He's working with Bet MGM Network. The show is Bet Sweats. Okay, let's start moving towards looking at next year. I know you're on the Chiefs just about every year. Do you want to do that this time around? And what are we looking at for Chiefs odds and the Eagles odds?
Only at the right price. And I say that because for the last 6 years now, the Chiefs have been around 550, 6-1 to win the Super Bowl every offseason. Circa, as of this morning, had the Chiefs at plus 550. I'm okay. However, shameless plug, BetMGM has 750 on Kansas City. So it's the same bet. If I bet 100 at Circa, I get 550. I bet 100 at MGM, I get 750. Yeah, I'll make that bet. That is the highest preseason number I've ever seen on the Chiefs with Mahomes as the quarterback. The highest I've seen. Yeah. So it doesn't really make sense. And look, until Baltimore and Buffalo can get through the pinstripes, like I always correlate the Bills and the Ravens with the Minnesota Twins. They have great regular seasons, and then they face the Yankees and lose. That's the analogy that I use. So yeah, I mean, I would bet Kansas City at plus 750, no doubt. If you could find that number, wink, wink. I would not bet it at 550, 6-1. Numbers matter; they do. As for the Eagles, they are favored at most books across the country. I've seen them as low as 550 and mostly in that 6.5 range. Makes sense. I also heard this morning on our show from an NFL insider, the Eagles might trade for Myles Garrett. I'm thinking, oh my God. Can you imagine? I mean, we all watch the Super Bowl, right?
Yep.
Can you imagine that defensive line adding Myles Garrett? I mean, good Lord.
Yeah. I mean, other GMs around the league should throw themselves off a cliff. They're like, we just cannot figure out the salary cap, and Harry Roseman somehow has done it where there is no cap. All right. We got to close on this. Now we start turning to NBA. We start turning to college basketball. You love the tournament. We love the tournament. We got to find value. Did you find someone recently where like, okay, good team, big odds?
Gonzaga. So full disclosure, I bet them earlier in the year at 20-1, and I was expecting them to be one of those perennial Gonzaga teams where they go 28-4 or whatever and cruise to a 1 or a 2 seed, and that's not going to happen this year because they have underachieved in the regular season. But I believe the roster is perfect for the tournament. I love their team. I love their coach. I think they're going to get deep, and that's all you want at this point. Tell me how you can bet 50 or 60-1 on them in Vegas right now on Gonzaga. The SEC love is so overblown. Like the SEC fawning and drooling is too much. It's a good conference. It's not unstoppable. I think Gonzaga, given where the number was and where it is a very, very good bet given the price. 50 or 60-1 on a team that still could go to the Final Four. You can do a lot of damage with that ticket if they make a run.
Bracket Matrix has Bama and Tennessee as 1s. Gonzaga's a 9. You get through the 8-9 game. Are we looking at Gonzaga neutral site against Tennessee +6, +7? Maybe not even that, right? So
yeah, it'll be a tight line. That's a good place. Yeah, I'd say 6 would be a fair number, but I also think Gonzaga's about to get hot here and wrap up with a 7 seed, win their conference tournament, and then take out a 2 in the second round, and then you don't face the 1 until the end. That's
there are 2.
Yeah.
There are 2.
Oh, man. Here we go. Purdue. I love Purdue. Love Purdue.
Very good. Sam, we'll save the rest of the stuff because you got so much coming at us here in terms of material. We appreciate it, buddy.
Modelo is an official cerveza of the Las Vegas Raiders and the JT the Brick Show. Modelo Especial is a